On the windswept plains of Jarath Prime, red sand stretched to the horizon under two blazing suns. The air shimmered with heat, and every grain of sand seemed to glow like embers. In this barren landscape, Lyris moved with the silent grace of a desert cat. Her slender form cast a long, dark shadow as she crept over a ridge, eyes scanning the dunes below for the prey she had been sent to hunt. Lyris was a scout for the Varath Empire, a race of alien warriors who believed themselves the rightful rulers of every planet they touched. Their latest conquest was at hand. Earth's bravest fighter, Captain Mara Dune, had come to Jarath Prime on a peace mission that had gone terribly wrong. Now she wandered alone, stranded after her ship's engines failed in the planet's intense gravity. The Varath saw this as their chance to prove superiority. Lyris's task was simple: find Mara, defeat her, and bring proof of her death to the Varath High Court. Below the ridge, a cluster of jagged rocks offered the only shade for miles. There, tangled in the shadow of a broken spire, lay Mara Dune. Her armor was battered, and a thin line of sweat trickled down her temple. Yet even in exhaustion, she radiated resolve. She sat cross-legged, repairing a small solar cell with deft fingers. Lyris watched, curiosity flickering behind her alien eyes. This human was different from the warriors she had heard about. There was a calm determination in Mara's movements, as if she welcomed every challenge that came her way. Lyris crept closer, each step measured and silent. The red sand whispered beneath her boots, but Mara did not look up. Lyris allowed herself a small smile. She would catch her by surprise, strike one swift blow, and depart before any of the human's allies could arrive. It would be over in an instant. Suddenly, Mara looked up. In a single fluid motion, she drew her blade. The metal glinted in the twin suns, and a soft hum filled the air. The blade was energy-infused, capable of slicing through the strongest armor. Lyris froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She had expected fear, but the look in Mara's eyes was calm focus. "Show yourself," Mara called, voice clear and steady. "I know someone is out there." Lyris paused, caught between duty and a strange admiration. She stepped from the shadows, hands raised in a gesture of peace and challenge. Mara's blade lowered an inch, but her posture remained ready. The two warriors faced each other in the silence of the desert. Neither spoke. A scorching wind blew, carrying swirling sands around them like dancing spirits. Lyris studied every line of Mara's stance, the steady breath, the relaxed shoulders, the unwavering gaze. She was a master of her craft. Lyris lunged first, moving, with the speed of a desert snake. Her curved dagger aimed for Mara's side. Mara pivoted, barely evading the blow, and countered with her blade in a shining arc. Sparks flew as metal met energy. Lyris felt the rush of heat and forced herself to retreat, barely dodging the counterstrike. For several heartbeats they exchanged blows, each attack precise, each defense flawless. The dance of weapons carved lines in the sky, drawing patterns of light and shadow. Lyris's blade scratched Mara's armor, leaving tiny scorches. Mara's energy blade nicked Lyris's dagger, sending a shower of sparks into the air. Yet neither landed a fatal hit. Then Mara feigned left and struck right, forcing Lyris to drop her weight to maintain balance. In that instant, Lyris tasted something unexpected in the air. The metallic tang of sweat, warmed by Mara's body heat, mingled with the faint scent of her blade's energy core. It was a primal flavor, raw and honest. Lyris froze, her mind momentarily swept by a wave of wonder. In that pause, Mara's blade hovered inches from Lyris's throat. The suns glinted off the energy blade, and Lyris felt the weight of her own dagger still held at Mara's waist. Neither moved. Around them, the desert wind howled in approval or warning. It was hard to tell. Finally, Mara spoke. Her voice was low but steady. "Yield," she said. "This fight gains us nothing." Lyris's heart thundered. She saw in Mara not an enemy, but a reflection of her own spirit, a warrior who fought not for conquest, but for honor. Lyris felt her grip, on the dagger loosen. Slowly, she let it fall, blade sinking into the red sand with a muted thud. Mara eased back her weapon. For the first time, Lyris noticed how tired the human looked, how every movement bore the weight of days without rest. Yet her eyes still burned with fierce pride. Instead of triumph, Lyris felt empathy. She reached out and touched Mara's forearm in a gesture of respect. Mara studied the alien's elongated fingers, then nodded once. Without a word, Lyris turned and walked away. Each step carried her further from the duel, further from her orders. Behind her, she could hear the soft scrape of Mara's boots in the sand as the human rose to her feet. Lyris did not look back. When she reached the ridge, Lyris paused and gazed down at the lone figure in the rocks. The suns were setting now, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet. A sense of awe filled Lyris's heart, an emotion she had never before allowed herself to feel. She knelt and scooped up a handful of sand, letting it fall slowly through her fingers. "You're my end, human," she whispered to the fading light. But beneath her words lay a different truth. This human might also be her beginning. Lyris stood and turned toward the dunes. In the distance, the first stars of evening appeared. Her mission to slay the human warrior had failed, but she felt no regret. In her place was a spark of something new: curiosity, respect, and a longing to uncover the mystery of this remarkable species called humans. With steady strides, she slipped into the shifting sands and vanished into the gathering night. Behind her, Mara Dune watched until the last shimmer of alien armor disappeared. Then the human warrior exhaled, tightened the straps on her boots, and began the long trek toward the distant hatch of her downed ship. Under the twin sun's soft glow, two warriors walked away from a duel that changed everything, one filled with questions, the other with resolve. And across the empty desert, the promise of an unlikely alliance was born. Under the twin sun's harsh glare, the red dunes of Jarath Prime shifted like living waves. Lyris moved swiftly across the widening desert, her boots sinking into hot sand with each step. In her mind, Captain Mara Dune's calm defiance played on a loop. The scout's mission was to kill the human, yet something else had taken root in her heart. A fierce curiosity. Mara, alone and weary, had set out toward the distant wreck of her starship. Each hour, the engines awaited repair. Each step, her hope wavered. She carried only a small pack with spare circuits and rations. The dunes tested her strength, but she pressed on, driven by duty and the promise of home. For days, Lyris tracked the human's footfalls. She studied the patterns Mara left in the sand, how deeply she sank, how often she paused to rest. Lyris moved just out of sight, never close enough for a sure strike, yet always watching. She learned the human's rhythm: when Mara walked, when she ate, when she slept. On the third morning, a sudden sandstorm rose without warning. A roiling wall of red dust advanced like an angry sea. Mara froze, face raised to the wind, then sprinted toward a cluster of rocky outcrops. Lyris followed, ducking behind a crag to avoid the worst of the gale. In the lee of the rocks, Mara shivered and coughed. The storm's fury rattled the stones overhead. Lyris appeared, her cloak wrapped tight, eyes narrowed against the wind. Mara tensed, expecting an attack, but Lyris only nodded toward a crevice. Together, they waded into the narrow gap. Inside, the rock formed a small cavern, its walls etched by ancient storms. The wind's roar was muffled here, but dust still sifted in through cracks. Mara knelt to inspect a pile of stones and quickly fashioned a crude barrier. By the time Mara finished, both were breathing hard. Lyris removed a small canister and pressed it into Mara's hands. Water. Surprise flickered in Mara's eyes. She did not speak, merely drank gratefully. Lyris watched, arms crossed, as the humans savored each drop. When the barrier held back most of the wind, Mara reached into her pack and produced 2 dried fruit bars. She offered one to Lyris, who hesitated, then accepted with a slight bow. The scout unwrapped the bar and broke off a piece. The human sweetness was unlike anything Lyris had tasted. It stuck to her tongue, bright and warm. Mara set her pack down and crouched near the barrier. She seemed to relax, studying the cave walls as if they told a story. Lyris lingered at the entrance, scanning the storm's red haze. After a long pause, she settled on a ledge, folding her legs beneath her. Mara spoke first. Her voice was low but steady above the wind's distant howl. "You could have killed me when we fought. Why are you here?" Lyris looked at the human's face, lit by flickering light from outside. "I was sent to end you," she admitted. "But I saw something I did not expect. You did not fight to kill. You fought to defend your life and honor." Mara picked at a loose stone, her gaze distant. "My people value life," she said. "We fight when we must, but we do not delight in destruction." Lyris frowned. "Your words conflict with our war stories. Humans conquered worlds with fire. Yet I see no fire in you now, only strength." Silence settled between them. Outside, the storm raged like an unseen beast. Inside, two warriors shared the same stone floor. Mara looked up. "Tell me about your people," she said. "Why do you follow orders to kill innocent travelers?" Lyris closed her eyes, memories of her training flashing before her. "The Varath believe in power through fear," she said softly. "Our empire grows when we show no mercy. I thought I would feel pride after killing you. Instead, I feel empty." Mara nodded slowly. "It is hard to see the cost of violence until you stand on both sides of the blade." A gust rattled the makeshift barrier. Dust sifted in and settled. Mara reached to her pack and pulled out a small data slate. "I have messages from my ship," she said. "If I can repair the engine, I can call for help. Can I trust you to keep watch?" Lyris considered the human's request. Every instinct screamed to seize the slate and end this. Yet she found herself wanting to protect this fragile alliance. She lifted her hand in a gentle salute. "I will not harm you," she promised. Mara's fingers brushed the slate's surface, fingers trembling with weariness. She set to work, opening panels and linking wires. Lyris stood guard at the cave mouth, eyes trained on the swirling red sky. After what felt like hours, the storm finally subsided. The twin suns peeked through breaking clouds, casting shards of light across the dunes. Mara wiped sweat from her brow and closed the engine module. The slate chimed faintly with a signal. "A lifeline," Mara exhaled. "That should be enough to reach command," she said. "They will come for me in 2 days." Relief and uncertainty warred within Lyris. 2 days. Long enough to learn from this human, to rethink her orders. "What will you do when they arrive?" she asked. Mara shrugged, exhaustion softening her features. "If they come in peace, I will speak of you. I will ask them to spare your world, to learn from us rather than conquer." Lyris's heart pounded. To face her own counsel with such words would be to betray everything she had ever served. Yet here in the cave, she felt a new purpose stirring. A chance to build, not destroy. Mara stood and offered a hand. "I don't know who you are," she said, "but you have my gratitude. Will you accept a ride home when my people arrive?" Lyris stared at the human's outstretched hand. No scout before her had ever offered trust. No human had ever offered kindness. Slowly, she placed her slender fingers in Mara's. Outside, the red dunes rippled in quiet peace. Two warriors, once enemies, now allies, stepped from the cave and faced the endless expanse together. Lyris took a deep breath of the clear desert air. "Teach me," she said simply. Mara smiled. "I will," she promised. And so they set off, side by side, each step washing the past away, each grain of sand marking the path toward an unexpected friendship. The morning sun rose pale and cool over the Rift Canyon, a vast chasm that split Jarath Prime like a jagged wound. From above, the canyon's walls dropped straight down for miles, carved by ancient rivers that had long since dried to dust. Lyris and Mara stood at its edge, peering into the depths where mist curled around jagged spires of stone. Mara tightened the straps on her pack. "We go down there," she said, voice firm but calm. "It's the fastest path to the landing site. The canyon walls protect us from patrol ships above." Lyra studied the human's bright eyes. She remembered their first duel, remembered how Mara chose honor over victory. Now they faced a new trial, one that required cooperation, not combat. "Do not like narrow spaces," Lyris admitted, shifting her weight. "But I trust you." Mara smiled. "Good. Then let's begin." They found a ledge wide enough to stand on where the stone sloped inward. Mara secured a coil of energy rope to her belt and tested its weight. Beside her, Lyris examined the rope's alien alloy, strong, flexible, and glowing faintly with power. Mara tied one end around a sturdy outcrop and clipped the other to a harness beneath her armor. "After me," she said. Lyris swallowed. Her own training taught her to leap across chasms, not descend on ropes. Still, she had promised trust. She clipped in, took a deep breath, and stepped over the ledge. The wind caught her long hair, whipping it around her shoulders as she felt empty air beneath her boots. Halfway down, the ground fell away in a sheer drop. Lyris's stomach clenched, but she remembered Mara's calm encouragement. Step by step, she lowered herself until her feet touched a narrow shelf carved into the canyon wall. Mara landed beside her with a soft thud. She unhooked the rope and led the way along the shelf, which sloped down toward the canyon floor. Below them, mists hid twisted roots and the dark shapes of creatures moving in the gloom. "Stay close," Mara whispered. They moved in silence. Each footfall measured. The air grew cooler, and the mist thickened into a damp haze. Strange fungi glowed on the canyon walls, casting pale green light. Lyris reached out, brushing a finger over the soft fronds. The glow pulsed, like a heartbeat. Mara paused. "These spores can heal wounds," she said softly. "We can gather some on our way back." Lyris's eyes widened. "You think of others even now." Mara shrugged. "If we survive, we must help anyone we meet." Lyris nodded, her respect for the human growing deeper than any memory of orders or fear. Together, they descended to a wider shelf and found the final rope anchor. Mara resecured the coil and began the last descent. As Lyris followed, a distant rumble echoed through the canyon. The ground trembled beneath their boots. Dust and small rocks rattled down from above. "What is that?" Lyris asked, voice tense. Mara's eyes darted upward. "An old guardian," she whispered. "The canyon sentinel." Below, a massive shape emerged from the mist. It rose from the canyon floor like a mountain on four legs. Its body was covered in stone plates and vines. Its eyes glowed with ancient light. The guardian's head swung slowly, smoke curling from its nostrils. Lyris froze. Every instinct told her to flee or attack, but Mara remained calm. "Don't draw your weapon," Mara said quietly. "Let me handle this." Lyris lowered her hand. Mara took a step forward, her posture open and non-threatening. The guardian's heavy footfalls shook the ground as it approached. Dust swirled around them in a ghostly dance. Mara raised one hand. In a clear voice, she began to sing, a soft, melodic chant in the universal tongue of explorers. The words were ancient, woven. From threads of hope and respect, Lyris watched in awe. The guardian paused, its great head tilting as if listening. Each note of Mara's song seemed to vibrate through the stones. The vines on the beast's back quivered, and the glow in its eyes softened. Mara finished the chant with a single note that lingered in the air. The guardian bowed its massive head, then stepped aside, revealing a hidden path carved into the canyon wall. Lyris's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen such power, an unarmed human moving a guardian with song and spirit alone. Mara turned to Lyris. "Come," she said. "It's safe now." They hurried along the secret path. Moss and ferns carpeted the narrow way, and water trickled from cracks in the stone. Strange birds with translucent wings darted overhead, their calls echoing like chimes. Lyris reached out to touch the feathers of a bird as it flew past. The creature paused, allowing her a gentle stroke before it vanished into the mist. "This place is alive," Lyris breathed. Mara nodded. The canyon was once a place of peace where travelers from many worlds met to share knowledge. They followed the path until it ended at a broad ledge. Ahead lay the canyon floor, a vast plateau of smooth stone. In the center stood an ancient altar, a circle of stones carved with symbols of unity. Clasped hands joined rings and concentric stars. Mara approached the altar and traced the symbols with her fingers. "This was meant to be a gathering place," she said, "but fear and war drove travelers away." Lyris knelt beside the altar, studying the carvings. "They speak of trust, friendship, and shared knowledge," she translated softly. Mara smiled. "Exactly." Together they placed their hands on the altar. A faint glow spread across the stones, building until a soft light rose like a column toward the canopy of mist. The air hummed with energy. Lyris felt warmth flood her body, hope, connection, and the promise of something greater than conquest. She glanced at Mara, whose eyes shone with the same wonder. A sudden rumble shook the plateau. From the canyon walls, fragments of stone began to crumble and fall. Dust and pebbles spattered across the altar. In the distance, a patrol ship's engines roared, echoing off the canyon walls. Mara's expression turned serious. "They found me sooner than I thought," she said. "We must leave. Now." Lyris rose to her feet, heart pounding. "What? About the Guardian?" Mara placed a hand on Lyris's shoulder. "It will hold the path for those who respect it," she said. "We have done so." They sprinted back along the hidden path as stones tumbled around them. Above, the canyon's sentinel emerged from the mist, its great form blocking the approach of the patrol ship's landing thrusters. The engines flared, sending up clouds of dust. The Guardian stood unmoved, a silent guardian of peace. Lyris and Mara reached the edge of the canyon just as the ship's landing struts touched the rim. Soldiers poured out, weapons at the ready. Their captain barked orders, but the Guardian's roar, a deep, resonant sound, filled the air. The soldiers froze, shields raised in instinctive defense. Mara stepped forward, raising a hand. "Stand down," she called. The soldiers hesitated, then lowered their weapons. The Guardian held its ground, eyes glowing softly. In that moment, the power of trust and respect was clear, an unbreakable bond that no weapon could shatter. Mara turned to Lyris and nodded. "Let's go home." Side by side, human and alien warrior climbed aboard the ship, leaving the rift canyon behind. As the patrol ship lifted off, Lyris watched the canyon's walls, still glowing with the light of the altar's promise. She knew her path had changed forever. Where once she would have followed orders without question, now she carried the memory of song, trust, and shared purpose. And somewhere within her, the spark of a new alliance burned bright, one that might guide two worlds toward a future built not on conquest, but on cooperation. The patrol ship glided through Jarath Prime's pale sky, its hull gleaming beneath the twin suns. Inside the main chamber, Captain Mara Dune and Scout Lyris stood before the assembled Varath officers. The chamber's walls pulsed with hollow screens, showing the Rift Canyon's hidden altar and the Great Guardian at its mouth. Murmurs ran through the crowd as the officers exchanged astonished glances. Mara held Lyris's gaze. "Commander Voss, you asked for proof of the human threat," she began, voice steady. "Here it is, not a weapon in sight, but a promise of peace." The Canyon Guardian bowed to respect, not force. She tapped her compad, and the hollow screen shifted to show Lyris kneeling at the altar, her hand atop Mara's. The image glowed with the altar's pale light, and every officer grew silent. Commander Voss, a tall Vahrath with silver-blue scales, folded his arms. "You claim this human song turned away the Guardian?" he asked, skeptical. "And that this alliance would bring honor to the Empire?" Lyris stepped forward, her voice clear. "Yes. The prophecy carved on those stones says a blood-tasted visitor will unite worlds. When I faced Captain Dune in the desert, I tasted her sweat, blood of a warrior. I saw not fear, but courage. That moment was the omen. Voss's eyes narrowed. Prophecy is old legend. Show me proof beyond story. Mara smiled gently. We have more. She beckoned to the ship's engineer, who activated a holomap of Jarath Prime. Over it, a faded network of lines and circles marked ancient trade routes that once connected distant cities. These routes were sealed by war, Mara explained. But the Guardians Act reopened a path. The ruins of old way stations lie along this map. If we restore them, we can rebuild peaceful trade. A murmur of excitement rippled through the officers. Lyris pointed to a cluster of stations near the planet's equator. My scouts have confirmed that these sites still stand. They only need repair. Commander Voss studied the map, then turned to Mara. You ask us to rebuild what was broken, and to trust humans as partners? Mara nodded. I do. Humanity has known war, but we learned that true strength lies in building, not destroying. She looked at Lyris. Scout Lyris can vouch for that. Voss's expression softened. He stepped to the edge of the holomap and placed a heavy hand on its surface. The lines flickered from red to gold. Very well, he said. Let the Empire send engineers and traders. We will reopen these routes. A cheer rose among the officers. Mara exhaled, relief flooding her features. Lyris allowed herself a small smile. For the first time, her people would see humans not as enemies, but as friends. That evening, the patrol ship drifted above the Rift Canyon. Mara and Lyris stood at the observation deck's wide viewport. Below, the Guardian rested beside the altar, its massive form wrapped in moonlit shadows. The stone circle glowed faintly, casting silver light into the night. Lyris brushed a finger against the glass. I never imagined I would help rebuild my home because of a human. Mara linked her arm through Lyris's. You had it in you, all along. I just showed you the way. Between them, the canyon lay silent, yet alive with possibility. In the distance, tiny lights flickered where new teams of Vahrath engineers had begun clearing debris from ruined way stations. Soon, caravans would move along the ancient roads once again. Days later, on the canyon floor, Mara walked between rows of work crews. Vahrath builders in gleaming armor worked beside human engineers in sleek earth suits. Children of both races raced between pillars of stone, laughing as they played under the Guardian's watchful eyes. Lyris paused by a group restoring a carved stone arch and picked up a chisel. With careful strokes, she traced the old symbols of unity: clasped hands, joined rings, and concentric stars. A young Vahrath girl watched her work. Scout Lyris, she said shyly, will you teach me the human song? Lyris smiled and nodded. I will. She began to sing the melody that had calmed the Guardian, her clear voice ringing like a bell through the midday air. The girl joined in, her alien voice high and bright. Others stopped to listen, then added their voices. Over the canyon, human and Vahrath sang together, weaving a new harmony of two cultures. Mara stood at the arch's foot, watching the scene with pride. She had come to Jarath Prime as a lone warrior. Now she saw the promise of a new era, two worlds united by trust, respect, and song. As the twin suns dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender, Mara turned to Lyris. This is only the beginning, she said. Lyris placed a hand on the young girl's shoulder, guiding her song. Yes, she agreed, voice warm. A beginning for all of us. Below, the canyon's altar glowed brighter, its light pulsing in time with the music. The great Guardian stretched its massive limbs and let out a low, rumbling breath, a sound that echoed across the canyon walls like a promise. And as two races joined hands in work and song, the legacy of conflict faded into memory. In its place, rose hope, renewal, and the unbreakable bond forged by humanity's triumph, not in war but in peace. The twin suns rose together over the rebuilt way station at Zephyria Pass, casting long, warm rays across polished stone pathways. Fresh banners of earth blue and Vahrath crimson fluttered side by side at the station's entrance. Captain Mara, Dune stood on the new marble steps, her arms folded and eyes bright with hope. Beside her, Scout Lyris felt the light breeze stir her hair, carrying the mixed scents of alien blossoms and human-engineered gardens. Since the Rift Canyon work began, travelers from both worlds had streamed along the ancient routes. Convoys of Vahrath hover caravans rolled past, laden with glowing ore and carved wood, while human freighters carried seeds, tools, and books of earth poetry. At every station, children of mixed heritage ran barefoot through gardens planted by joint teams, their laughter echoing against carved pillars. Today marked the arrival of the first official Earth delegation. A sleek cruiser descended from the sky, its hull reflecting sunlight in ribbons. Mara's compad beeped. "They're on approach," she said to Lyris, her voice steady despite a flutter of excitement. The cruiser's hatch opened with a soft hiss, and a group of diplomats stepped onto the platform. Humans in crisp uniforms, faces full of curiosity and respect. Lyris applauded lightly, her long fingers tapping her thigh. "They will love this place," she said, gesturing at the gardens and frescoes depicting the canyon's prophecy. "You have shown them what we can achieve together." The lead diplomat, Ambassador Chen, bowed to both Mara and Lyris. "Captain Dune, Scout Lyris," he greeted, voice warm. "We come in friendship and gratitude. Your actions here will guide the Federation's future policy on first contact." Behind him, other delegates filmed the scene, their hollow recorders whirring softly. Mara smiled and extended her hand to Lyris. "Shall we show them the canyon altar?" she asked. "It is the heart of this new alliance." Lyris nodded. Together they led the delegation through manicured paths toward the ancient circle. As they walked, Lyris pointed out improvements: solar-powered lanterns hanging from stone, columns, water channels that fed the hanging gardens, and translation glyphs carved beside Varath symbols. Human and alien engineers had worked side by side, blending technologies and languages in each detail. The result was seamless, a beautiful tapestry of two cultures. At the canyon's mouth, the great guardian stood silent watch, its stone plates polished by caring hands. The delegation halted, struck by the creature's quiet majesty. Ambassador Chen bowed again, placing a small wreath of white and crimson flowers at the guardian's feet. A soft hum of respect spread through the group. Mara stepped forward, raising her voice so all could hear. "This guardian once turned away my ship's patrol when I sought peace. Today it stands not as a barrier, but as a symbol of trust between our worlds." She paused, meeting Lyris's gaze, then continued. "Let it guide us always to choose understanding over conflict." A gentle breeze stirred the wreath, scattering petals onto the guardian's stone toes. Lyris felt a lump in her throat. She had been taught to value conquest above all. Yet here she stood, proud of building rather than destroying. After the ceremony, the delegation moved into the way station's grand hall, where a long table held gifts from both sides: earth fruits and Varath crystals, hand-woven tapestries, and recorded earth music unmixed by alien frequencies. Diplomats and officers mingled, tasting unfamiliar foods, pointing at new artifacts and sharing stories of home. Lyris found a small cluster of Vahrath children practicing the human song on the hall's balcony. Their voices blended with the tinkling of water fountains and the soft clink of ceremonial teacups. One child, a boy with speckled green scales and bright eyes, spotted her and waved. Lyris smiled and joined them, singing the opening notes. The children beamed, proud to teach their mentor. Inside, Mara conversed with Ambassador Chen about future treaty terms. She spoke of free trade routes, cultural exchanges, and joint research stations on uncolonized worlds. Chen listened eagerly, nodding and marking points on his data slate. He admired Mara's balance of firmness and kindness, a true bridge between two peoples. Evening fell in violet and gold. The twin suns dipped behind distant mesas, and the first stars shone in the clear sky. Lyris and Mara stood together on a terrace overlooking the station. Lanterns glowed beneath hanging lantern lilies, and distant voices rose in song. "You did it," Lyris said softly. "You changed two worlds with your courage." Mara shook her head. We did it, she replied. You chose to follow your heart instead of orders. That choice made all the difference. She placed a hand on Lyris's shoulder. Now our task is to keep building this peace. Lyris looked out across the expanse of lights below. She remembered her first mission, to end a human warrior on sight. Instead, she had found hope. I will stand by you, she promised. Together, we will guide both peoples into a new era. Below them, a celebration began. Music from both worlds swelled in harmony, and dancers in earth tunics and Varath robes circled lantern-lit plazas. The aroma of spiced meat and alien fruits rose on the air. Traders shouted offers in 2 languages, children chased glowing lanterns, and laughter lifted into the evening sky. In that moment, Mara and Lyris understood the true meaning of the canyon's prophecy. It was not about the end of one species by another, but the beginning of a shared future. As the first notes of the human anthem merged with the deep tones of Varath drums, they knew that the greatest victory was peace itself. High above, the great guardian raised its stone head and let out a deep, resonant call, a sound felt more than heard. It echoed across the valley like a heartbeat, steady and sure. The crowd below fell silent, then nodded in reverence. Mara took Lyris's hand. Let us go, she said, smiling. A new dawn awaits. Together they descended into the bustling plaza, ready to lead their worlds into tomorrow, a future born from trust, song, and the unbreakable bond of 2 warriors who chose friendship over war.